The all-new Sports Cage is brought to you by Regina Motor Products. This guy was a longtime NHL referee. He's now gotten into the media world. He's one of the hosts of the Snipes and Stripes podcast with Jeremy Roenick, and JR was on just over a month ago before his fundraising dinner in Weyburn, and he always talked about how he loves the people of Saskatchewan. Tim Peel, welcome to the all-new Sports Cage. How are you?
I'm great, Maz. Thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan of the Saskatchewan people too. One of my dearest friends, he stood up in my wedding, is Kelly Chase, and I've been to the beautiful town of Porcupine Plain, Saskatchewan, a time or two over my career. But a lot of good friends: Melrose, Kaminsky, the Shen boys, on and on. The number of hockey players that the province of Saskatchewan has turned out is incredible, and referees. But I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Chaser, the news came out again. Leukemia, the cancer's back.
Right.
Have you talked to him lately?
Yeah.
I know he was on the Cam and Strick podcast. I was listening earlier today because they were asking about, hey, did you congratulate players after a fight? Have you talked to him lately, and how's he doing?
Yeah, good. No, I talked to him yesterday for probably 30 minutes. He gets on a tangent, and I just put it on speakerphone, do chores around the house and let him talk. So his spirits are good. Chaser's like, he doesn't want people to feel sorry for him. I'm like, I text him this morning, hey, can I bring lunch in to you? He's like, I got too many tests to do and all that. So, you know what? When he first got it, it looked really bad back in the summer and the fall, and he beat it, and now it's come back. So, you know, like Chaser says, it's just another fight that he'll have to win, and we're all praying for him, and he knows the hockey community's behind him. So he's doing well.
I remember as a kid growing up watching the Saskatoon Blades, and this was in the era of the Kelly Chase and the Tony Twist and the Kevin Kaminsky and all that. They don't make guys like that anymore. They do not make guys like that anymore. And to see what he's been through, it's amazing. Now, hockey is a small fraternity. Now there's the players, but then there's the referees, and there's some pretty famous referees that went on to NHL careers from Saskatchewan. So I'm going to throw out some names, and then you go from there. Brad Watson.
The worst dresser in the league. Terrible clothes. Do not take any fashion advice from Brad Watson. But Brad was a tremendous referee, worked in the NHL for over 20 years, did several Stanley Cup finals. I loved working with Brad. He was the consummate pro. He took this job very serious. It was a craft that he took a lot of pride in.
But if he's making NHL money, like, would he not take your fashion tips and advice from you and the other referees, or what was it that just made the style so bad?
Well, listen, he should have been. I won't say he should have been Brad Wattstein or some Jewish name. And I've got a lot of Jewish friends, so I'm allowed to make Jewish jokes. But Brad is the cheapest guy I knew.
Okay.
But he's just a great person. I still keep in contact with him. He's now an officiating manager with the NHL and teaching the young guys now how to become hopefully great officials like he was.
Okay. Brad Meyer.
Another tremendous referee. Brad and I came up, we had very similar paths. He worked in the Western League. I worked in the OHL. We got hired the same year by the NHL. And the first 2 years, Brad and I spent it in the American Hockey League. We worked the Calder Cup finals together, and then got hired by the NHL at the same time, got promoted in 1999, 2000. And Brad and I worked a lot of games together. Brad was an excellent referee. We didn't work together, but Brad and I went to the Olympics in Russia in 2014. He worked a gold medal game between Canada and Sweden, and I worked the bronze medal game between between Finland and the United States. So, yeah, great referee, great family man, and just a great person.
We're chatting with Tim Peel here on the all-new Sports Cage, retired NHL referee, and he's a podcaster now. He's half of Snipes and Stripes with Jeremy Roenick. The sad news came out a couple of weeks ago that Mike Hassenfratz passed away. And I remember growing up watching Western Hockey League. To me, and I don't know, is it weird to have a favorite referee? Nobody did a game better than Mike Hassenfratz. He was always in control, and he was such a large man. Just the command that he had on the game. To me, I thought he was one of the best to ever do it in the dub. And then he went on to have a great NHL career as well.
Yeah, Hazy worked over 700 games in the NHL, and the only reason he had to retire is, ironically, he had a bad heart, and they had to do a procedure back years ago, and that's why he had to step off the ice. And from what I understand, he had a heart attack while sitting on his sofa in Florida. And yeah, it was sad to see. It's sad to hear. You know, as soon as I saw it, I told my wife. I said, "Do you remember Hazy?" And she's like, "Yeah, I remember Mike." And he was just a gentle giant. And you mentioned, you know, that having that he was such a big man that for guys like me that are 5'10", yeah, it's hard to get presence on the ice, and the way you get presence eventually is by how you carry yourself and so on. But Mike, when you're 6'4" or 6'5", you automatically have presence on the ice. And Mike was an icon in the Western Hockey League, was a tremendous referee, and was a great referee in the NHL, and very well liked. And it was very sad to hear about Mike's passing, because he was, you know what Mike was? Mike was a gentle soul. Mike was as big as he was, and maybe as intimidating as he looked. He had a gentle soul and a great spirit about him that you just liked being around Hazy, and it made your day better when you were with him.
Mike Hassenfratz, born and raised in Regina, went to Leboldas, started out as a linesman, then was a referee and was in the NHL training program. Then he got dropped. Then he eventually got signed. He went on to have a great career. So I'm going to ask you now, I said this earlier in the show, I don't have thick enough skin to be a landlord or a referee in sports, because I just can't take when people are yelling at me. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes, what city or place is there something that comes to mind where you knew people were going to get under your skin, or a certain guy or a certain gal in a certain place that could just get to you?
Well, not get to me, because the fans, and being completely honest, never got to me. I would laugh when the stadium would start chanting "Ref, you suck," and I'd laugh under my breath, and because it was just, I always found it funny. But there was a fan in Philadelphia, as you know, their fans are very passionate fans. Nuts is probably a better way to put it. And but this is the great thing about hockey fans, because once you meet a crazy fan, and you maybe have a beer with them, their interpretation of you completely changes. And there was a guy in Philadelphia, he's called the sign guy. He still sits there behind the visiting goaltender. And he's been a season ticket holder for 40 years, and he's got a stack of 20, 30 signs, and he's got it for every play, you know, different scenarios. And so when we would skate out on the ice in Philly, he'd always hold up the sign, "Ref, you suck." And so one night we're at a local establishment close to where the Flyers play, having some beers and a bite to eat after the game, and he comes over and introduced himself. And I said, "Oh, you're the sign guy, eh?" And anyway, we sat and drank till 2 a.m. Well, fast forward a couple months later, and for the rest of my career, every time I'd skate on the ice, I'd always go to the guys in the room beforehand. I go, "Watch the sign guy." And I'd skate on the ice, and he'd hold a sign, "Welcome back." And I'd give him a fist pump like this. And we were obviously, we weren't friends, but we were friends through hockey that way. And that's the great thing about hockey fans is, you know, comments on my Twitter posts or Twitter feed about different things. You know, I hated you as a ref, but I'm really enjoying following you on social media and hearing your opinions. So, you know what? That's the great thing about hockey fans. They're very passionate. And so everybody was the same. It was like that in every city.
I think one of my favorite part about listening to hockey podcasts, including yours, because there's no ex-referee perspective, that's for sure.
No.
When people do impressions of the coaches, and I don't know what it is, but the Ken Hitchcock impressions, no matter who does them, always get me. Was Hitch that funny and whiny of a guy? Because he must have been whining at you guys as referees when he was behind the bench.
Yeah, he kind of had this whiny voice about him that would just kind of, it was like nails on a chalkboard. But I liked Hitch. I had a tremendous amount of respect for Ken, and fortunately we had a pretty good relationship. There were times that he was not happy with me, and I would just stay away from him. But yeah, you know what? And Ken chased me across the ice one night in St. Louis, and and he was upset with a call that Mike Lego and I made in a game and chased us across the ice. But then I'd see him at a golf outing, and actually funny story, because I was golfing with Darren Pang and Ken Hitchcock, and I was standing at the tee box. This is like a year or two after Ken chased me across the ice, and now we're playing golf together. And he drove up in the cart, and he literally stopped the front tire on my foot. And I'm trying to tell him, and back. And so finally he got the cart off, and Panger's laughing. He's like, he's getting you back for that call 2 years ago. We're belly laughing, right? It's a great thing about hockey, people.
And great stories. All right. Tim Peel is with us on the all-new SportsCage on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. He's co-host of Snipes and Stripes, the podcast with Jeremy Roenick. Last week, the episode, you had Theoren Fleury on. And although you may have known him throughout the years, through hockey and all of that, now on the other side, when you're on the entertainment, you're preparing to talk to somebody, and with everything that he has gone through, were you as surprised as I was about how honest he was? Because he was bringing out some new information. Everybody thinks they may know this story, but he decided to go down some paths that I'm like, wow, that's probably not easy for him to say, but probably, and on the other side, for you listening, that's also got to be hard for you as well when he's bearing his soul to you both.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't surprised, Omaz, and the only reason I wasn't surprised is because I texted him earlier in the day and I said, is there anything off limits? Because I obviously don't want to be disrespectful. And if there's just something that he doesn't want to talk about, and he goes, nope, Tim, he goes, nothing's off limits. I'm an open book. So, I asked him about the time he had the gun in his mouth in New Mexico at this 6,000 square foot mansion that he was living in by himself, and he'd been on a 10-day bender of doing cocaine, and he said he had a pile on his counter on his coffee table like Scarface, and drinking vodka straight, and just was losing his mind. And I was embarrassed to say, and the book's right there. I bought it. I finally bought it last week and started reading it. I don't know why. I've never read it before. Probably because I've got a 12th grade education from New Brunswick, so I was maybe afraid that I wouldn't be able to get through it. But it's a tremendous book so far. I can't put it down. What this young man went through, and I was telling people that I would get text messages from people that friends of mine that listen to the podcast, and they are like, man, I didn't know he went through all this. And I said, imagine being a 14-year-old boy getting sexually abused by your coach. And then as you get older, that coach, Graham James, is now receiving the Man of the Year award in the Canadian Hockey League. The Man of the Year award.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like that? That just blows me away that, listen, times were different back then, but how somebody didn't speak out or speak up about a young man, and because obviously Sheldon Kennedy, and there's rumors of other NHL players as well, and how that just got swept under the rug is boggling to me. And then also what's more mind-boggling to me is how the guy only spends 5 years in prison for something like that. I don't understand that. But you know what? Theo is in such a good spot now. He's been sober for, I think, for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
He told me he's in the last 10 years, he has given over 900 uh, talks and speaking engagements. So, and I YouTubed one of his talks, and I said to my wife, I said, "Come watch him speak here." And I don't know where it was. And I said, "Man, he's good. He just walks back and forth on the stage, and he's just telling his story, and it's really it's incredible. And it's incredible that he even was able to play at the highest level and to
Yeah.
play like he played. The guy was just an absolute, he's 5'6". He was playing in an era, Maz, where Dave Browns and
Killers.
and
The
killers.
certified killers were playing.
I told him on the podcast, I said, back then, Theo, they wouldn't even hire a linesman that was under 6 foot back then, because the linesman had to get in there and break up fights with guys that are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". So yeah, it's an incredible story. And I'm just, it's as bad as it is, it's heartwarming to see how well he's doing now.
So to me, anytime I see Theoren Fleury or Sheldon Kennedy do anything as functioning members of society and they're trying to make it a better place, I am amazed with everything that they
Right.
went through. And I'll go back. I moved from Moose Jaw to Swift Current in 1997. I was switched radio stations and I went there. And I was doing play-by-play on TV for the Bronco games. And I remember quietly asking around about the James and the Kennedy and all of that. And if people were, still involved or if there was any connections. And I was kind of politely and quietly told, don't ever bring that up ever again. And I'm like, how can you? This is curious to be like, if there are still connections here. And then eventually I was like, okay. And for the betterment of employment, just to never ever. So for you to say, like, how could this have happened? For all of that to gone on. And so those are the people that we know about. And for all the people that we don't know about. And what got me is he told the story of the book signing. We all lived through this and we saw this play out, but you forget. And Theo gets attacked now because of his political views, because he wants people to have the freedom to do that. And a lot of people are making judgments about this man because of who he supports politically and how he wants to stand out for freedom, but they forget his story. But on your podcast, when he talks about at the book signing in Toronto and he sees a guy who looks like he's down on his luck in the way that he's dressed and all of that, and he pulled him aside and the guy said, "Me too." There we go.
Yeah.
The hair on my arm just stood up and my eyes are starting to water, because when you hear that, that how many people don't have the courage to do that, or maybe pick up that book, but they don't want to take that book to the counter. And maybe that's why, if you can buy the books online, that it's great. So by you guys having him on, I thought, no, that was great. And I'm going to reach out to see if you'll come on the podcast and talk about it, because now more than ever, and you're seeing this in the entertainment world with the Diddy stuff and all the things are coming to light, and people, doesn't matter the time frame if it happened, but back then silence was that was it.
I know.
It was muzzled.
And what's sickening too is that I didn't know it until he told us the stats that it's 1 in 3 females are still molested to this day, and 1 in 5 boys. That's just that's an incredible stat. I've got 2 kids that are 10 and 12, and if it ever happened to them, I'd probably be in prison, because I just don't know. I don't know how anybody can. It just tells you the sick world we're living in, because it's just it's tragic. But you know what? I'm proud of Theo, and he you think about it, he got traded to the Rangers from the Blackhawks, or vice versa, and probably the worst city in the league for him to be at is New York City, where you can go until all hours and hide 3 streets below because of all the underground stuff that goes on there. And he was taking helicopters over to Atlantic City at 2 a.m, and he lost $3 million one year to the casino over there. Partying, he would hang out with the homeless guys until it was time to go to practice and drinking with him. Like it's incredible that he could even function, and I'm just happy that he's doing so well now.
Well, and I think the big thing is, though, and hopefully enough people will rally. I'm not one of them, but you guys have been influential to get him into the Hockey Hall of Fame, because if there's anybody that deserves it,
I agree.
I think it's him. We're chatting with Tim Peel. This is awesome. It's the all-new SportsCage, retired NHL referee. Today's a big day in Tim Peel history. Colson, do we have the video queued up, ready to go? Did the NHL credit you with scoring this goal, or is that just here we are? This is Roberto Luongo, and what, Tim, what happened here?
That was an incredible. I've got the puck right here. The puck is in my office, and the off ice officials brought it in after the game. So it's December 11th, 5 years ago today. I'm working a game in the town, my adopted hometown now of St. Louis, and Robert Bertuzzo skates across the red line and snaps it in, and usually they either snap it closer to the goal or rim it around the boards, and he kind of took a different angle, and I saw it coming towards me, and I couldn't jump up because it was waist high, and I couldn't duck, and so I just let it hit me, and it hits me in the left hip, and as you can see, which is crazy, it hits me in the left hip and then goes to the right and goes all the ways across the goal line and beats Luongo. And you can tell from the video, Lou is like, he does not know what to think. He is just beside himself, and the St. Louis hometown is going, the fans are going crazy, and the horn goes off, and I'm on all fours because I don't see it go in, and the linesman comes over, Ryan Galloway, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I go, "Did that puck just go in the net?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh my God." So Ray Burley, the trainer for the St. Louis Blues, comes out, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I think I need to step away for a few minutes." So I went in the dressing room and gathered my thoughts. And so the best part of the story, well, there's a couple, but I get home. So I come back on the ice, and Roberto Luongo is one of the greatest human beings I know. He's just a tremendous person, and he says to me right away, he goes, "Peelsy, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, Lou, I'm fine." I said, "But guess what?" I go, "For the rest of my career, I'm going to be able to say I scored on Roberto Luongo." And he just starts belly laughing. So fast forward 2 nights later, I'm in Chicago, and Florida's playing in Chicago, and Reimer was the backup, and Reimer's starting against the Blackhawks. And we're skating around and warm up, and Luongo comes, he sees me, and he makes a beeline. He comes right over. He goes, Timmy. I go, "Hey, Lou, how's it going?" He goes, "Good." He goes, "They won't even start me now when you're refereeing our games." And I laughed. But that whole night, that night of the game in St. Louis, when I got home, I was having a glass of wine with my wife, and we were talking about it, and she's like, "You're unbelievable, the different stuff that you've been through with the league." And she goes, "You not only score a goal, you score it for the town you live in, for the Blues, and you're the only goal ref to ever score a goal like that." And all of a sudden, my phone is blowing up, Maz. Like, it's just, I can't keep up with the texts and the phone calls, and I look at her, I go, "I have finally arrived." And she goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Wayne Gretzky just texted me and said you've only need
Nice.
seven." He goes, Gretz texts me. He goes, "Timmy says you only need 744 more goals before you catch Hully." And that was his text to me. It was unbelievable. It was it was on the Today Show, and obviously every sports highlight. And so I text the video to Bortuzzo because he plays for Utah now, and I text him the video today. I said, "Happy anniversary, Bortz," and he loved it. He's like, he goes, "A blooper video that will live on for ages," he said. So it was pretty funny.
So, with St. Louis being your hometown, how happy were you for Big Walt and the Kachuk family last year to see the Panthers win the cup, and then see that cup get handed to him after they won? Was it hard for you not to get emotional over that?
No, it wasn't hard because I cry over watching. I undercover boss when somebody does something nice for somebody. So no, I'm a softie. I wear my heart in my sleeve, and Walt and I have been friends for 20 plus years, and Chantel has been amazing to me and my family, hosting parties for me when I worked my 1,000th game. The Kachucks had a big party at their house for me, and they're just tremendous people, tremendous family. And Brady, when he was 5, Chantel called me one day and she's like, "Hey, Brady wants to be a ref for Halloween." So I had an old referee jersey and I took it over, and Brady wore it for Halloween. And but then the problem was Brady wanted to wear it all the time. So Walt was playing for the Blues, and Brady would want to wear this referee jersey to the Blues game. And Walt finally put his foot down. He says, "My son is not becoming a referee. He's becoming a hockey player." So, and Matthew, I've known them both since they were 4 or 5 years old. So very happy for Matthew. Walt and I talked about it after they finally won it and put them away in 7 games. I said, if they don't win game 7, you never know. And, because Walt never played in the Stanley Cup final, you don't know if Matthew, as good a hockey player as he is, you may never get back to a Stanley Cup final again. Corey Perry won a Stanley Cup his rookie year in Anaheim, and he's been back to 4 or 5 since then, but he hasn't won a Stanley Cup since his rookie year. And so I was kind of not torn, but I was rooting for Edmonton in Canada because I have so much admiration for Connor McDavid. He's just a tremendous athlete. But my heart was, I really want to see the Tkachuk family raise the trophy. And I went to Matthew's Stanley Cup party here, and just to see Chantel and Walt and his friends. And Matthew is, the Tkachuks are so well respected and liked here in the St. Louis community because they give back. And here's a guy from Boston, Massachusetts, and Keith Tkachuk that has got a lot of money and could live anywhere he wants, but they love St. Louis because of the people here. And that's one reason why I've stayed here for 23 years and met my wife. It's a tremendous town.
Well, Tim Peel, we really appreciate you making the time. And I'll say this, if the Snipes and Stripes podcast is ever going to go on the road and to do a show, you and Jeremy Roenick, we will find a spot for you in Regina somewhere for you guys to set up shop. In Regina. And I know Jeremy's probably shy and doesn't like to meet people or whatever, but we'll get him out there in front of the crowd. So if you guys are ever taking the show on the road. It's Tim Peel from the Snipes and Stripes podcast with Jeremy Roenick. He's part of the all-new SportsCage this afternoon. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to wrap our ultimate Christmas song bracket for today, and we're going to check in. Week 15 of the NFL is upon us, and a big Thursday nighter. Rams 49ers, playoff implications everywhere. It's the all-new SportsCage on 620 CKRM and online at sportscage.com.